Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome. So great to see all of your faces with great respect and with great kindness. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to Spirit Rock Online. This weekend's retreat is entitled We Are Meant for These Times with Kyra Jewel Lingo. To give a feel for who we're sitting with today, I invite you and welcome you to go to that chat that's open to everyone right now and just let us know where you're calling in from. There are over 110 registered for today, but it's always interesting to see how far we're going. Hey, Berkeley, we see you. Montana, San Francisco. Keep reading, and I'm going to continue welcoming you. Spirit Rock is located online globally and on land in the San Geronimo Valley, which is part of unceded Coast Miwok ancestral territory in Northern California. We acknowledge the complex history of this beloved place as a gesture of respect and reparation towards the indigenous residents of the colonized land where we now practice Buddha Dharma for the benefit of all beings. We welcome you all parts of you, your color, your culture, your beliefs, gender, orientations, ability, and ages. Please fully take your place in this circle now. And in the spirit of inclusivity, if you'd like to rename yourself with your pronouns or your location, the rename tool is under the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your window, or you can go to the participants tab, hover over your name, and the rename option will be highlighted. Just click and start typing. Before I offer up our tech overview for this space, I'd like to thank you for your very generous donations and registration fees. Your fees have kept our organization open through these incredible, unprecedented times. Your generosity has helped us maintain our beloved campus, maintain our robust scholarship funds so that everyone can be included, and allow us to pay our teachers. So I am only one of a dedicated group of people who are behind the scenes on staff, both online and on the land, and we thank you. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Maria Cristina Tavera. I used to work on the land. Now I'm online. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from Carborough, North Carolina. It's a little confusing for me to figure out the indigenous lands here. They're not known, so I'm just going to say Carborough, North Carolina until I figure it out. I've just moved here. And I get to be your host for this gathering this whole weekend. Um, so now to give you an overview and how it affects your experience of our technology. To maintain the serenity of our global meditation hall, we have you on mute. And the chat is going to be to host only once the teacher starts offering teachings. Please do not private chat the teacher as it can be a distraction to the teaching flow, even if you know her and love her. We love, 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 love to see your beautiful live breathing faces during this gathering. Jack Cornfield, almost 2 years ago, insisted that we need to do these gatherings via Zoom, not a webinar, so that we can interact. So your presence on the screen is going to serve not only each other and our entire Sangha, but is also on a practical level is going to help the teacher really read you and see what the needs are in the room. So please have your video on as often as possible. And as always, do what is best for you at this moment. And that might shift and change. So if you're going to have to move around and get comfortable or do the dishes, turn your video off or turn it toward your altar or to stationary item. But again, as much as possible, please be in the room with us. To ease screen fatigue, we've figured out that if you switch on and off on that view button, both gallery and speaker view, and kind of shift it up a bit, your eyes feel a little bit more comfortable. Also, looking over to the side while still having your camera on will also help just with the focusing. That raised hand feature, which is what we usually use for Q&A, is either under your participants tab or your reactions tab. Depends, and that's how we'll call on you. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, but you can work chat me and go, hey, Christina, I'd like to be called on, and I will call on you. Or you can always chat your question anonymously to me, and I will read it aloud for you. If you missed a part of the teaching today, I may not necessarily have caught it either. So please, the best bet is to keep that question for the teacher and during the Q&A periods. Also know that you're going to get a copy of this recording in about 10 days, and you are going to be able to keep this recording for 90 days, and you can reread it, rehear it as often as you'd like during that 90-day period, so you have other options. So please just enjoy today as much as possible. There's a participants guide. I will put it in the chat. It has all sorts of nifty information, including ways to connect with Kyra Jewel, and we'll also give some resources. Today we're going to do some breakout sessions. We do want to invite folks who identify as LGBTQI or BIPOC, that's Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and would prefer to be in a group with those folks to share. We're going to give you ways to rename yourself with a letter and a dash in front of your name. With 100 people, just know that it's easier if you make those changes sooner than later. So it'll be B for Black, Indigenous, People of Color with a dash, put it in front of the name, L for LGBTQI with a dash, or you can put an asterisk if you just prefer not to be in BIPOC in the breakout at all. So again, the rename tool is either under those three dots, and you'll see it come up, or you can go under Participants tab, hover over your own name, and rename yourself with that. And if none of this makes sense and you can work the chat me and I will help you do that. Just go, Christina, do this. Do that for me. But just know that again, with 100 of you, lots of requests coming into me, you might want to do that sooner than later. We are going to do a breakout sooner this morning. We're not going to do BIPOC and LGBTQI during that because it's just going to be a get to know you kind of a thing. Some of you are taking CEs, that's continuing education units, and I recommend that you stay connected best with your power cord attached either to a laptop or a phone, better a laptop, the entire day, even during lunch, during all the breaks, because the system is tracking how much time you're in the room. And if you're having connectivity issues, best that you email continuingeducation@spiritrock.org. That was in the email that you got, and let them know that you're having a lot of drop-offs. You can also email me, chat me. There's so many ways of communicating. You can always chat me, and I will take note of your name and let them know. But better that you email them directly. Tech challenges, I'm here. We've already optimized Kyra Jewel's video and sound. So if you're not hearing her or if you're not hearing me right now, check your sound levels. Always easiest if you can do some earbuds, even your phone earbuds will be great. It'll always amplify the sound better. Closed captioning is on and will be available throughout. If for any reason you notice that it's not on, just chat me if I've missed it and I'll make sure that it goes back on again. I always like to remind folks that Zoom, our internet, our equipment, completely imperfect, and so am I. So I'm going to apologize in advance for any delays in responding to you or any dukkha that happens through technology that we just can't control. Thank you very much for your generosity there. It's a great pleasure to welcome Kyra Jewel Lingo. Yay! I keep saying it was about time. It's been so long. Kyra Jewel began practicing mindfulness in 1997 and teaches Buddhist meditation, secular mindfulness, and compassion internationally. After living as an ordained nun for 15 years in Thich Nhat Hanh's monastic community, Kyra Jewel currently teaches in the Zen lineage and the Vipassana tradition at the intersection of racial climate, and social justice with a focus on activists, Black, Indigenous, people of color, artists, educators, families, and youth. She's now based in New York, another fellow East Coaster. She offers spiritual mentoring to individuals and groups and is the new author of the just released book, We Were Made for These Times, 10 Lessons in Moving Through Change, Loss, and Disruption. We have placed a link to her book in that guide, and if you want to support her, buy the book and buy it often. Welcome back, Kyra Jewel. It's been a little minute, and we're so, 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 so grateful to have you back here to one of your spiritual homes. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias, Maria Cristina. I'm hearing an echo.
I am not. Let's see if I turn my mute off.
Okay. I still hear an echo. Let's see. Not sure why that is.
Is it coming through your mic? Is it coming through your equipment?
By this. Do you hear an echo?
Now I do.
You do.
When we tested your bell, do you have,
Original sound is off.
okay. Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3. No echo for you all?
No.
Okay, I still have a little one, but it's manageable. I'll proceed. Well, I'm so grateful to be with you and so glad that you're here, that we get to be together for these 2 days. Thank you, with a deep bow of reverence to each of you for coming together so that we can create community together and explore how it is that we were made for these times. And I'd like to invite us to take a few breaths first with Bell, offered to me by my teachers from the Spirit Rock teacher training. So we'll just take a moment to feel our body, to feel our breath as we feel each other and hear this bell. So I love to begin by connecting with what our intention is for this time, what has brought us to this retreat, to this exploration, to this topic. And so in a moment, we'll have a chance to do that in small groups and to get to know a few people if we'd like. None of the times that we get into breakout groups are mandatory. If you wish to stay in the main room, you're more than welcome to do that. But it will be a chance to meet a few people and to connect with our heart's deep desire for being here. And there's some interesting research about the power of writing down our intentions and then sharing them. So this is a study from researchers at Dominican University, showed that 70% of people who wrote down their goal ended up meeting their goal versus only 35% of people who set a goal but didn't write it down. So it's this connecting to our intention is about really letting that have attention, have time and space as we set out. So this research goes on to say it's even more effective when we share our intention with someone else, even more effective than writing it down. So that's why we'll do that. And I'll share mine for our time together, is to for all of us to experience ourselves as more resourced, more accepting, and more at ease with whatever our situation may be. And if there is a difficulty or challenge that we're facing that has brought us to this retreat, that we will be more resourced with that difficulty. So we have this opportunity to take time for ourselves, to be present for ourselves and for each other in this retreat. The fact that it's online does not have to mean it's any less powerful in terms of what can happen inside of us as we take the time to tune in and feel into what's alive in us and in our lives. And so my encouragement as we set this container for our 2 days together is to create space as much as you can outside of the time that we're on the computer together to support yourself to be on retreat. So to continue your mindfulness practice as you prepare your food, as you go to the bathroom, as you do the tasks of cleaning or feeding your pets or answering emails or whatever things you do outside of the time we're together, to bring the possibility to those activities of your full presence as much as possible. So really allowing the sense of a continuity of mindfulness practice. And I want to share about what's informing me in this retreat. So, as you heard from Maria Cristina, there have been some very big transitions in my life, and one of them was becoming a nun at age 25, and another was deciding to disrobe at age 40 after 15 years. Basically, most of my adult life until then was in the monastery, and that involved completely reinventing my life, personally, socially, financially, spiritually, culturally, and there was quite some culture shock, many kinds of shock that was there in that transition. And so that's the experience I'm drawing from of what helped me in that really huge life transition, to stay centered, to be with the hugeness of what was shifting and moving and unknown in my life. And whatever personal challenges, whatever personal loss or transition we're going through as individuals is not separate from our larger collective shifts and disruptions. And so I aspire that the teachings that we will explore together on this retreat will also be helpful for us as a collective as we face a lot of uncertainty and suffering, hardship potentially, and really face the reality of the many ways that our society is experiencing breakdown, but that we can find freedom and stability right in the midst of all of that. that we can meet whatever life brings us with an open heart, a balanced mind, and committed action. So we'll begin today to really look at how we can come home to the true home that's inside of us, how we can find our way back to it, how we can take good care of this moment, which is the basis for any future moment, and how we can lean into the discomfort of uncertainty rather than resist it and fight it. So that's the first part of our exploration. And then in the second part, after our break, we'll have an hour break today. Second part, when we come back, we'll explore Buddhist psychology and how we can care for strong emotions, and how really being with our emotions can help us access deeper understanding and insight and transform habit patterns. And we'll also learn effective practices of staying rooted and grounded in the midst of overwhelm and crisis, returning to the reality and safety of the present moment through intentional, focused belly breathing and walking mindfully or moving mindfully, and learning to stay connected to the earth. And then tomorrow we'll be looking at upeksha, equanimity and inclusiveness. Upeksha is the Sanskrit word, upekkha is the Pali word for equanimity. So we'll learn how to cultivate our capacity to see the bigger picture and view ourselves and our difficulties with greater understanding. And we'll also dive into gratitude and how this can really foster resilience and strength, even in the midst of great challenge, heartbreak, how we can share it with children. So that's the flow of the teachings. We'll be moving in between meditations, movement, talks, journaling, sharing in breakout groups, question and answer. Basically that combination of things. So let's go into small groups. So you'll have 10 minutes. And this is a Sangha building practice. This is a practice of being present with each other, to share ourselves, to receive each other. So as Christina mentioned, we won't be in affinity groups this time, but later in the day we'll be able to choose affinity groups. So you'll just be assigned to 2 or 3 other people, so we'll be groups of 3 or 4. I'll invite you to go around. For the sake of time, you could do alphabetically by last name, or if your group decides some other way to make the order, that's fine. And each of you will introduce yourselves, your name, where you're calling in from, and what brought you to the retreat. What is your intention, your wish, your desire for this time? And if you still have time, you each will have about 2 or 3 minutes. Then you can share anything else that you wish to share. So everyone will just listen while one person is sharing and then moving to the next person. And I think maybe Maria Cristina, you'll put in an announcement when it's time to switch. Okay, so I'll put this in the chat, what the prompt is, in case you want to refer to it, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes. And maybe Maria Cristina can also just let us know what to do if people don't want to be in a group.
You don't have to accept the invitation. I was able to quickly put most of you into the groups that you had requested already. So, but don't be disappointed if I missed you. It's just, this was a quick one. And I am going to have the timer on so you can self choose. Kyra Jewel, who should start once we get everybody in the rooms?
So alphabetically by last name.
Alphabetically by last name. So give it about a minute for everything to settle, because again, there's about 100 of you in the room. So just give it a minute. I am checking to make sure that no one's left alone in a room. And if the group is done early, you can always come back to the room, into the main room. We'll be here. Kyra Jewel, are we ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do
See you
it. 10
soon.
minutes. Enjoy, folks.
Gathering. Maybe we're all here now. Hope that was fruitful. And if anyone wishes to just give the bigger group a flavor of how that was for you, you could put just a one-word reflection in the chat. Anything at all, maybe how your body is, how your heart is, or anything that's alive in you coming back. So it's good to read your reflections coming in. A lot of sense of connectedness and warmth, resonance, relaxed and open, welcomed, more grounded and centered. Gratitude for being here. Beautiful. We are grateful. Open, present. Resourced. Heart feels nourished, held. Togetherness, easeful. Resilience, sweet. Smiling. Connected, grateful. Peaceful. Deepening glow. Eager, grateful, motivated, universality, hopeful. So lovely to get a sense from you about how your time was together. Appreciate your shares. Socially active. Thank you. So we'll move first into a meditation. And so my teacher, my root teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, I also am a student in the Vipassana tradition and a teacher at Spirit Rock, as you know. But my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thai, as his students call him, which means teacher in Vietnamese, he sums up the whole lifetime of teachings, his whole lifetime of teachings, with one sentence: I have arrived, I am home. And this is one way of speaking about mindfulness, of being present, is coming home to ourselves. And so when we bring our mind back to our body, we come home. This is a home that's inside of ourselves, that no one can take away, that can't be damaged or destroyed. And this is probably a more true home than any outer home we might have. So no matter what happens around you, if you can find this home inside of you, You're always safe. So in this meditation, we'll begin now by connecting with what is present in this moment. And as you feel your body, just choosing whichever posture will be most supportive for you. It may be standing, it may be sitting, it may be lying. Choosing a comfortable position that helps you to be alert and also relaxed. You're welcome to have your eyes open or closed. And if you have them open, just choosing a spot a few feet in front of you to gaze at softly. Beginning by feeling the contact between your body and what is supporting you. Letting yourself rest in this place. Letting your whole self come into this moment. And sometimes there are parts of us that are elsewhere, and that's totally normal. So you could just invite gently whatever parts that may be somewhere else. Thinking of something in the kitchen or something at work, or wondering about someone you care about and where they are. Just allow those parts to gradually come back and settle in right where you are. Allow yourself to land right here in your body, occupying as fully as you can the space that you're in. So set the intention to stay with yourself, to be present for yourself, to come home to yourself. To tend to what is alive in you just now. Notice what's here. Is there tension, relaxation, some pain, some pleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling? As much as you can, bringing an attitude of openness to whatever you encounter. And if you do notice some tendency to judge what you're experiencing, that's okay as well. That's natural. Let everything be welcome in this silence. Whatever is in your body, in your emotions, in your mind. You deserve this care, this time to rest and simply be. As you feel your inhale, feel your exhale. Let yourself rest, releasing tension, holding on the exhale. You are precious and unique. In all the world, there is no one who brings the precise combination of gifts that you bring. Allow yourself to arrive here as fully as you can so you can savor the gift of yourself. All the different parts of yourself, your joy, your sorrow, your gracefulness, your awkwardness, your clarity, your confusion are welcome here. See if you can give yourself permission to be just as you are in this moment. You belong, and every part of you belongs. You don't have to be or become anything else. You are enough. Let this feeling of okayness, of enoughness, grow in you. Allowing yourself to rest and feel at home within yourself, in your true home. If you notice resistance or doubt or some habit of pushing away your goodness, welcome that too and let it be here, meeting it with friendliness. There is room for all of who you are in your true home. Whenever you're aware that your mind is distracted, gently bring it back to your body, to the sensations in the body, like the experience of contact with whatever is supporting you, or to the sensations of the breath, whatever is right here. Come back home to yourself. This is so important because we can live much of our lives estranged from parts of ourselves. And now we have the opportunity to reconcile, to welcome back the parts of ourselves that may have been pushed away or ignored. If it's helpful, you can repeat inwardly, I have arrived, I am home. And if it supports you, you can connect these words with your breathing. I have arrived with the in-breath. I am home with the out-breath. And just the key words, arrived with the in-breath, home with the out-breath. Continuing this for a short time in the silence. You may already begin to feel yourself settling into the home inside of you, the place of your strength, wisdom, and clarity, a place that is trustworthy and capable of providing you with refuge in the storm. And if you're not feeling this, no problem. Continue to be aware of your body's sensations, your breathing, the sounds around you. The sense of coming home will develop over time. Maybe not the first time you do this practice, but as you become more attuned to yourself, you'll find you've been at home all along. I have arrived. I am home. Arrived in the present moment, home in myself, just as I am. Arrived, arrived, at home, I am at home, dwelling in the here and dwelling in the now, solid as a mountain, free as a white cloud, the door to no birth and no death is open, free and unshakable. So this is a practice you can bring into your daily life, not just your meditation. Saying quietly to yourself, I have arrived, I am home. Especially when you're rushing to get somewhere, this can be a helpful reminder that the address of your true home is right here and now, wherever you are. Gently open your eyes if they were closed and take a moment to reconnect with what's around you, letting your body stretch. That feels good. And so we will take a 10-minute break now. And Maria Cristina will put in the chat the time so you know what time to come back. It's 10 minutes from now, wherever you are in the world. And we'll have the talk once we come back. Take good care of your body. See you soon. Welcome back, friends. We'll enjoy the sound of the bell. Just letting ourselves arrive again as we listen. So I was recently invited to share on a panel with friends in Sri Lanka, where I used to live, to share about my new book. And they were asking about what to do in their situation where there's a lot of insecurity right now with the pandemic and food scarcity and paranoia and anxiety, worry, fear. They were asking, what's the most important thing to share right now when people are in so much crisis? And which teachings from the book they wanted to know would be most helpful. And I talked about the need to come home to ourselves, to touch this place that always exists, even when things feel very out of control. There's a story that I am very sustained by from Thai. From this time of war and after the war in Vietnam, where many people were fleeing Vietnam in boats and looking for refuge. And this was a very dangerous situation with many more people crowded into the boat than was safe, and days on the sea, getting lost, not sure where to go, where would they be received, and not having food, not having water, potentially being victims of a pirate attack. And he would say if just one person on the boat could remain calm, the whole boat would have a chance to survive. And so he's talking about the need to be in our true home. So we all have these experiences to some degree of transition, of challenge, of heartbreak, of loss. Moments when we realize we can't control the way our life is unfolding, whether it's in our personal lives or in the world around us. But mindfulness is an energy that can help us to learn to move through these intense, challenging times in ways that don't add to the suffering and difficulty that are already there. We can even learn to open our hearts to what richness, what wisdom these times of immense disruption can bring. And this is the key step that can help us to settle ourselves when we're profoundly unsettled. This coming home that we just practiced. Returning to ourselves in this moment, regardless of what's happening. When we bring our mind back to our body, we come home. And this is the home that keeps us safe when there isn't safety outside. It's important to spend time there so that it's a more robust place when we really need it. When we touch this experience of coming home, it's like we've finally arrived home after a long journey. We experience a sense of peace and even freedom no matter how confining the outer circumstances are. Coming home to ourselves feels like belonging. It's a state that holds us and enables us to hold others. So this is the principal aim of mindfulness, to experience that we have already arrived here and now. There's nowhere we need to run to or be other than right here. And so we're no longer looking for something outside of ourselves, in some other place or time, because we touch the truth that all that we long for and search after is right here in this moment. We can experience encountering this spacious and free place of our true home in unexpected moments when we spend more time tuning in to what's happening inside us and around us. Once, as a novice nun, in our slow walking meditation practice in the meditation hall, after we had practiced sitting meditation, I became very present of each step. And I noticed that my foot contained the whole of my body. So I wasn't just stepping with my left foot, I was stepping with my right foot at the same time. In my left foot, I was stepping with my heart, with my brain, with my stomach. And I was 100% with my body, tasting the earth with my feet, listening to the earth, looking at it, feeling it, knowing it, smelling it with my feet. My heart was loving it, my lungs breathing it in and out. And then I turned my attention towards the earth, and I knew that I was also walking on cool streams of water flowing under me, and hot, fiery liquid deep below in the center of the earth. I imagined walking on the feet of those directly opposite us on the other side of the planet. The soles of my feet touched the soles of a little baby taking tentative steps, and a pregnant woman and an old grandpa. My feet touched the feet of a lonely, isolated person and someone carried away by hatred and anger. I was also walking on the feet of someone who was right then doing walking meditation and enjoying the present moment. I was one with those walking the earth whose hearts were filled with love and peace. If we're not aware of what is happening in the present moment, because we're caught up in our thoughts or reveries or in the grip of worry or other emotions, it's as if we've left our home. If we stay away for a long time, dust accumulates and unwanted visitors may start to take up residence in our home. Things like stress and tension accumulate in our bodies and our minds, and over time, if we don't tend to them, they can lead to physical or psychological illness. But the beauty of awareness is that we can always return home to ourselves. Our home is always there, waiting for us to come back. And there are many ways, many paths that lead us back to our home. We can be aware of our breath. We can be aware of what's happening in our body, our movements, and by connecting with the reality around us, like the sounds, the smells, the light, the colors, the shapes, the textures in our environment. And when we come back home in these ways, we're able to take stock and survey the territory of our being, seeing clearly what parts of our inner landscape need more attention, more support. So in times of transition and challenge, it's especially tempting to abandon our homes, to leave our territory in search of answers, perhaps by worrying about what will happen in the future. But this is precisely the moment when we need to return to the present moment, feel our bodies, and take good care of ourselves right now. Because the future is made of this moment. If we take good care of this moment, even if it's very difficult, we're taking good care of the future. It may also be hard to come home if we sense that unresolved pain has accumulated and we don't want to face it. We may get into the habit of avoiding our home completely. We don't want to be with those raw, unprocessed parts of our experience that are painful and can be quite scary. If this is our situation, it's important to have compassion for ourselves for not wanting to return home to face these difficulties, this pain inside of us. And yet the only way we can heal them is to be with them. If we want to make our home a more cozy place, we need to turn toward them. This teaching that says the only way out is in. The only way out of our conflicts, of our confusion, is to turn toward them, to go into them. And so in this retreat, we will practice stoking up the courage inside of us to go back and put our home in order, so we can slowly learn to enjoy being back there. So a key practice is to stay with our present moment experience. As tempting as it may be to jump onto this thought train going into the past or this thought train going into the future, all these things will arise in our mind. We can notice them and take good care of them rather than getting carried away by them. We can anchor ourselves in our experience of our breath, of our body, and stay with what is actually happening, not our mind-created, imagined reality of what could happen, what might happen, what we are afraid will happen. Because the past and the future aren't the place where we can come home to ourselves and resource ourselves. with the elements that we need to move through our difficulties. We can only come home to ourselves in the present, in the here and now. So we can spend a lot of our time and energy trying to predict or control what the future will bring. I'm a planner. I like to plan. And I know that this kind of gives me the illusion that I can control something, being well prepared. But if we think things will go according to our plan, and we get attached to them going according to our plan, then we may not be ready for what actually happens. So sometimes this trying to control, it doesn't serve us. A lot of times it doesn't serve us. Because actually, we don't need to know what the future will bring. This is maybe a strange thing to say, but we just need to be right in this moment. And if we touch this moment deeply with our mind and body united, we will have all that we need to meet what is present in this moment. We can't find what we need to meet tomorrow or a month from now because we can't control or exactly know the future. But we will find what we need for right now. So I had a chance to talk with a dear friend, Conda Mason, who also is a Spirit Rock teacher, who did the teacher training with me. And she told me this story. We were on her podcast, The Brown Rice Hour. And she told a story of being in Senegal to make a film some years ago about women and their daughters and getting young women into education. And so they were in a vehicle, she and her her partner who was doing the some other part of the filming. Conda was doing the camera filming, and the other friend was doing some other part of it. And then this driver taking them way, way out of into the bush, and they were going to do this filming for mothers and daughters that were walking to this place from miles and miles away to be part of this film. And Conda realized that she had malaria and dysentery, both. She said she was sicker than she'd ever been in her life. And there was no place she could go for a hospital. And they had to be there to film because all these women were coming on that day. So she told her partner, just drop me off at a place. I just need a room with a running toilet and a bed. And so they found a place. She didn't even know where she was. She was so sick. She just lay on her bed. And her partner, who didn't know about filming, had to do the filming that day. The driver took her, and they were gone the whole day to do this shoot. So she was in her bed in this place she didn't know, and as you can imagine, her mind began to do what all of our minds would do, worry. When you're that sick, she was like, I could die here, and nobody would know. Nobody in my family knows where I am. Nobody I care about. Only this one friend and the driver. I don't even know where I am. So her mind went into this spin of like, how is this going to end? And she said it was the words of Thai, of Thich Nhat Hanh that came into her mind, because she was actually in a moment of danger, more from her mind than from her body, right? She grabbed onto this practice of coming back to her true home by breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I calm my body. Whatever it is that works for you, fill in the blank. Breathing in, I have arrived. Breathing out, I am home. Breathing in, I feel my in-breath. Breathing out, I feel my out-breath. And she noticed how she was able to begin to be okay in the midst of her body in tons of physical pain and discomfort. Her mind started to be okay. And she made it. She made it through. She did that the whole day for hours and hours in bed. Eventually, her friend and the driver came back to pick her up. She went to the hospital as soon as she could. She got medicine, but this practice of coming back to our true home helps us to meet whatever is happening. And it's not about controlling our circumstances, which is impossible. It's about taking hold of our attention and directing it where it can be helpful in this moment. So I want to invite us to just take 5 minutes to journal, and then I'll share a bit more and we'll journal again. So I'm going to put some questions in the chat, and if you have something to write with, we'll just take some time to ponder how this works for us in our own life. So the questions are in the chat and I'll read them out. What has been your experience of your true home? When you hear me talk about it, what comes up for you as how you have experienced that? How do you find your way there? What helps you in finding your true home, in finding your way back to your true home? What support might you need to visit your true home on a regular basis? If any, maybe you don't need any support. So if any of these questions speak to you, you could write about one, you could write about them all. Maybe there's something completely your own that you want to write about, that's fine. This is just a suggestion, starting off point. So I'll put on my timer for 5 minutes and then we'll continue with the talk. Got about a minute left. And just bringing your writing to a close. You're, of course, welcome to keep writing if you have more that you want to share, that you want to explore in yourself, and then please continue writing. We're going to have a break in about 40 minutes. So during my 15 years as a nun, I often heard people ask Thay, my teacher, what to do when facing big life decisions, like which career path to take, or whether to separate or stay with their partner, or whether to ordain as a monastic. And Thay would often say, don't try to figure out the answer by thinking about it. In thinking over a question again and again, we don't generally arrive at real wisdom, but we instead tire ourselves out and maybe get even more confused, more anxious. Because these deeper life questions, they can't be resolved at the level of the mind. They have to be entrusted to a different, deeper part of our consciousness. So Thay would suggest that we consider this big question as a seed and plant it in the soil of our mind and let it rest there. And that our daily mindfulness practice is like the sunshine and water that the seed needs to sprout. We just keep practicing. We do our daily practice. We leave that seed, that question, down below the surface in the depths of our mind, and one day it will arise on its own and in its own time. And then we'll know the answer to our question without a doubt. But we have to leave the seed down in the soil of our mind and not keep digging it up to see if it's growing roots. It won't grow that way, as we know. And it's the same with a deep and troubling question. We ask our deeper consciousness. That's part of this cultivating our true home. So we have trust that we have this part of ourselves that's vaster, that's more resilient than, the usual mind that we go through our day with. And it's in our true home that we let this seed ripen. And we trust that it has the capacity to do its job, to take care of it. And we let go of our thinking, our worrying about this question. And in our daily lives, we practice calming, resting, coming home to ourselves in the present moment. And then this seed has everything it needs to ripen naturally, authentically. And this can't be rushed or forced. It may take weeks, months, years, but we can trust that this seed is down there, in quotes, being tended to by our deeper consciousness. And that's, in Buddhist psychology, that part of ourselves is called store consciousness. It has the function of storing our memories, all the various mind states that we can experience, all of our ancestral knowings in latent sleeping form. So for example, maybe you've experienced trying to solve a problem or find an answer to something that perplexes you. You think hard and circle round and round in your mind, but you don't feel you get anywhere. And then you let the question go, and suddenly, when you least expect it, inspiration or a helpful idea comes to you in a time of rest, and you just know what to do. Has anybody had that experience? When you let it go, that's when something arises, right? So that's store consciousness operating. It doesn't need our thinking to do that job. Thinking just gets in the way, like a, obstruction in the wheel. So it's working on the problem for you while your day-to-day consciousness just does what it needs to do, just focusing on, the daily things. So store consciousness works in a very natural and easeful way and is actually much more efficient than our thinking mind. That's why we have to give it over to the store consciousness. Stop messing with it, So when wisdom arises from store consciousness, we know it. It feels right in our body and we don't have doubts anymore. We don't circle around and go back and forth, right? But it's challenging to wait for the answer because we may really want and need to know the answer. We may find ourselves deeply insecure and fearful if we don't know what to do, what path to choose. We worry we'll make the wrong choice and we catastrophize about what will happen if we take this or that direction. But it's really hard to find our way if we keep feeding this worry and fear. It's like we muddy the waters even more. We can recognize when we notice that we're doing this, that we're not helping the situation, and we can stop. We can come home, return to this moment, anchor ourselves in our body. Right? That's what Khanda did in that story I told, right? She was like, this is not helping me. This worry, this fear. Let me come back to what is actually real in this moment. Yes, it's true I could die, right? But we don't know that. All we know is right here, this is my body, this is my breath, and let me be with that, right? So we return to this moment, we anchor ourselves, and we find the solidity of this home inside of us, which is capable of helping us find our way. If only we let it, right? And if we let go of trying to figure out the future in our heads. So this was my case a few years ago when I was trying to discern whether or not to leave monastic life after having lived as a nun most of my adult life. So during that time, for several years in a row, I attended silent retreats at the Insight Meditation Society, or IMS, in Massachusetts. And these retreats were either 6 weeks long or 3 months long. And I would stay on the grounds for that whole time and follow the meditation schedule, starting with meditation at 5 in the morning and walking, sitting, eating in silence, the whole day in silence until 9 p.m. when we went to bed, working, receiving instructions from the teachers, having interviews with the teachers a couple times a week. And this time in silence with very little social interaction gave me the space and time to come closer to myself because there weren't any other distractions. And it was a really important time of pausing, of looking deeply, of letting my store consciousness take its time to really process this really deep question, because when I became a nun, I thought I was going to be a nun my whole life. That was the plan. And it was very painful, very confusing to find myself questioning this vow that I had assumed would carry me through my whole life. And in that time of transition, I didn't know who I was anymore. I really didn't know who I might become. I didn't know if I left robes, what would await me. And so I was in the midst of this process, like the caterpillar that dissolves itself completely in the chrysalis, in this process of becoming a butterfly. It was terrifying and extremely uncomfortable. I wanted answers. I wanted clarity. I was used to knowing who I was and where I was going. That was the first time in my life where I didn't know what my next step was going to be, who I was going to be. So Joseph Goldstein was one of my interview teachers on these retreats at IMS, and when I shared how distressing it was to find myself with no solid ground under me, he mentioned Alan Watts' book, The Wisdom of Insecurity. And it points out that when we are clear and sure about what we're doing, we're less open to the many other possibilities available. But when we let ourselves hang out in this space of not knowing, there's enormous potential, and life can unfold in innumerable ways. So rather than avoid and fear this place of uncertainty, we can embrace it and all of its gifts. So what helped me so much in these silent retreats, it wasn't that I found an answer to my dilemma of whether to leave monastic life. I didn't figure that out there. But rather, what helped me was the ability to dwell more comfortably with the experience of not knowing. I mean, it felt like at times that I was just going to die if I couldn't figure it out. But what I learned there was I can be with the not knowing. It's not going to kill me. And so I learned how to allow the seed of this very deep life question to just rest in the deeper layers of my consciousness. And I was able to touch peace and joy and well-being in the midst of the not knowing, in the midst of the awkwardness and confusion of this dissolving self. And I learned to let go of fear and resistance right as I was losing my identity. So we can do this when we slow down. We can choose to rest back into the uncertainty rather than fighting it. And I just invite us all, if you're in a position where you can actually do this, just rest back. Just actually let your body lean back a little bit physically. Take a deep breath. So we can touch into this sense of space precisely in moments when it feels like there's no way to keep going or we'll be totally overwhelmed. So this breathing in, breathing out, feeling the body, connecting with what is happening around us, shapes, colors, sounds, light, that can help us create this space. So we slow things down, we let our nervous systems recalibrate, center. And then even if the external situation hasn't changed, we have changed in relation to that situation. So if we can stop, we have the chance to touch into something that's deeper than this feeling of being overwhelmed, being consumed by anxiety. And so this practice of pausing, stopping, connecting, it helps this seed of our question to mature and ripen into the guidance and the direction that we need. And right now, in a sense, our culture, our society is dissolving. We're collectively entering a chrysalis, and structures that we've come to rely on and identify with are breaking down. There are floods happening in New York that never happened before. We can't get Christmas trees in many parts of the US because there's a Christmas tree shortage. I never heard of that in my life before. All these things that we haven't met before, right? Lockdowns and new variants, and the uncertainty continues. So we're in this cocoon and we don't know what the next phase will be like. And this learning to surrender to the unknown in our own lives is essential to the collective learning that we need to do to move through this time of faster and faster change, more and more intense disruption and breakdown. So this is something we can bring into our daily life. So when you notice this leaning into the future, this tensing up or trying to predict what will happen or straining to figure out what to do, whether it's you yourself or with others, see if you can actually physically rest back what we just did together. Or maybe you bring a hand to your chest if that helps you to connect. That's your hand on your chest kind of helps you to lean back, to not lean into the future. It's supporting you, holding you right where you are. You know, open up the front of your chest. Let your arms, be relaxed by your sides. Lean back if that helps. And this can support your mind to rest back, to release, to let things be, even for a short moment or to whatever degree you're able. All right, so let's do another 5 minutes of journaling on this topic of resting back into the unknown. I'll put these questions in the chat. So, is there a significant question in your mind that you are trying to resolve? If so, what is it? How might you let go of thinking about it so your deeper consciousness can take care of it for you and lead you to an insight about it? Can you trust that the answer will come and that you have what you need for this seed to sprout? So again, just an invitational phrasing. You feel free to write whatever works for you. Use whatever question, whatever is on your heart. Anything that's resonating or coming up from this part of the talk. And we will continue in 5 minutes. We'll be in breakout groups next to share what came up in our journaling practice. So take 5 minutes now, and then we'll have a chance to share with others. And just to say too, if you're not a linear thinking, writing person, but if you want to draw or move your body or process this material in some other way than writing, feel free to do that. So take another minute. And we will finish that, feeling free to come back to that in your own time. Oops, sorry. And so now we'll go into breakout groups if you wish. You're welcome not to. This will be a chance to share what came up in your journaling practice or what's alive for you after hearing the things I just shared in the talk. And I'll put this in the chat. So you'll be in groups of 3 or 4, and then take 2 to 3 minutes each. And just to save time, if you can go alphabetically by last name, you'll be in a different group most likely than the one you were in before. I don't know if that's true, Christina. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you are in a new group with new people, just do a quick round to share your names. But we really need to keep to 2 to 3 minutes a piece. Otherwise, we won't get around to hear from everyone. So maybe one of you is the timekeeper and, waves when it's 2 minutes so the person knows it's time to end so the next person can go. So Maria Cristina will also put an announcement through when it's time to switch, but please respect that it's really just 2 or 3 minutes each. Okay, and we will be back in 10 minutes. And if you're not participating, feel free to journal or share in the chat in the main room if you like. See you in 10 minutes. Hope you enjoy. So welcome back, welcome back. Just inviting those of you who were in a group, if you want to put a word in the chat, that expresses how you're experiencing yourself, what's alive for you. Feel free. It's very lovely to read your words, inviting everyone to just scroll through and see how this time landed. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. So just to say now, we'll transition into questions and responses, and we'll have 15 minutes for that. So I ask your permission to have our break start in 15 minutes from now, and we'll have a full hour. So we'll come back an hour after that. So if you have something you'd like to reflect on or ask, you can raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat or send it in anonymously to Maria Cristina. And Maria Cristina reminds us that the raised hand feature is under Participants tab. So if you click on Participants at the bottom, you can find it there, or in the Reactions tab, you can find a raised hand. So I see Claire and then Jess. Yes, please.
Hi. I had a question around the planting the seed, which I love, by the way. I think it's a great concept. I just got a little stuck.
So welcome back, friends. Hope you had a good break and nourished yourself. So maybe we can just welcome our bodies back here with a little bit of movement in a seated position. For any of you who are familiar with interplay, it's a practice of unlocking the wisdom of the body. And I'll just offer a few movements inspired by interplay. So let's start by taking a deep breath together. And this time we'll take a deep breath and you can let it out and sigh as you exhale. You can make some noise as you exhale. And then we'll shake out an arm and shake out another arm. Shake out a leg and shake out another leg. And then we'll just shake out what we're sitting on. And you can shake out your voice. And take a deep breath, let it out with a sigh again. And then we'll moosh our face around, give your face a massage, some attention, your temples, around your eyes, your jaw. You can give a nice massage or mooshing to your scalp as well. And massage around your eyes, the bones of your eyes. And then just check in with the rest of your skin, a little kind of hello skin. You can check check in with your arm and your chest and your back and your legs, and just give your skin some care. And then take a deep breath and let it out with a sigh again. Hope you feel more connected to your body after that. I learned that someone wrote a book, I can't remember who, that said if all humans would shake, as we just did, and sigh, they would do that every day, there would be no war. So we'll do another meditation. So now we're turning our focus to this second area today of caring for strong emotions and really relying on this fundamental practice of breath and walking, moving mindfully. So we'll do a meditation on caring for our strong emotions, and I'll give some teachings, and we'll have a chance to reflect. And so in this meditation, I invite you to bring to mind a slightly difficult or challenging moment that you experienced recently, but not a major or super traumatic one. So it's best to begin this kind of practice with something easier. You could also alternately bring to mind a situation that happened some time ago, but that involves a sticky or difficult emotion that you often encounter in your life and you're curious about. So, if at any point in the meditation you feel overwhelmed, just pause. If your eyes are closed, open your eyes. Connect with the places that your body is making contact with, and bring awareness to colors, shapes in your environment, so you can change your bodily position and stretch. And then if after that you feel settled, you can resume the practice or just stay with mindfulness of your body, your breath. You don't have to go back to the emotion if it's triggering you. So begin by finding a comfortable position and letting the body open and settle. Feel the solidity and stability of the earth and let it hold you. Allow your body to rest within the support of the earth. Connect with the experience of breathing in and breathing out. Enjoy the natural flow of the breath, how it knows just what to do. There's no need to manage it. It just takes care of itself. So allow your attention to sweep through your body, to release places of holding or tension in your face, your jaw, shoulders, belly, any other places that might need your attention. Also noticing if there are places in the body that feel good, feel pleasant or neutral, where things are just okay. And as we'll be touching into what's difficult in our emotions, it can be helpful to first resource ourselves. So bring to mind a place, a person, or an animal that helps you to feel safe and connected. Visualize the characteristics of this being or place. Connect with the positive feelings you have when you're close to this being or in this place. Breathe these feelings into your body and mind and allow them to nourish you. And now allow the difficult emotion to be here. Imagine yourself back in that situation where this difficult emotion arose. And notice how it feels. Was it anger or worry, fear or hurt, doubt, shame, disappointment, something else? Whatever it was or is now, notice how it feels in you. What are its qualities? Is it heavy, sticky, sharp, dull, aching? Is it hot or cold? Allow mindfulness to also come up now and be with your emotion. With mindfulness, you breathe in and out, recognizing the emotion, calling it by name, becoming familiar with it, staying present with it. Hello, sadness, I see you. Hello, fear, I see you. Whatever it is, mindfulness is here with it. Breathe in and out, staying focused on what you experience in your body. Mindful awareness offers acceptance to this painful emotion. While part of you may want to run away from the pain, mindfulness is here and helping you to give it space, to offer it friendship. So see if you can open to and accept and befriend this painful emotion to whatever extent you can. With this gentle opening toward your experience, now embrace this part of you, accepting it even more deeply, opening your arms to it to offer love and care, like you might hold a crying baby or child who just needs compassion and care. Releasing any judgment toward your emotion and seeing if you can bring in the energy of tenderness. My dear emotion, I'm here for you, holding you. I will take good care of you. I won't leave you or abandon you. Let yourself express whatever wants to come to this part of yourself that has perhaps been rejected. Now it can really get the care that it needs. Holding it, patting it on its back, saying, there, there, I'm here for you. You don't have to go through this alone. Taking a few deep breaths as you embrace this part of yourself and notice how this feels in your body. Now turning with interest to explore what this emotion has come to teach you. What wisdom does it hold? What has brought it about? Maybe there's some part of it that reveals itself to you that you hadn't seen or understood before. So looking deeply into it to see it more clearly. Inquiring, what might this emotion need or want from you right now? Resting back and receiving whatever insight or perhaps deeper understanding wants to emerge about this emotion. How you might want to relate to it in the future. Wonderful. Very good. Just letting yourself settle back and rest. Opening to whatever is here in your body or in your awareness. Having done this practice. touched, what you were exploring, some space and time to integrate. Hello weeds, hello garbage, hello future compost. Thank you for this chance for transformation. I'm so happy that you're here. If I hide you away, you'll just come back bigger anyway. So I'll take care of you, and soon you'll be beautiful flowers. So we don't need to get rid of the weeds in us, these painful emotions. In fact, they're essential. They become fertile compost for the garden of our mind. With mindfulness, anger can turn into compassion, greed into generosity, and ignorance into wisdom. These difficult emotions in us are like mud that is helping the lotus of awakening to grow. They have a fundamental place, and as we learn to work skillfully with them, they transform into exquisite flowers. Gently opening your eyes, you had them closed. Slowly transitioning out of our meditation. Thank you. So, Buddhist psychology offers this model of the mind that divides our consciousness into several layers. In this case, I'll just mention two. This upper layer that is the mind consciousness and our waking mind, our everyday thinking mind, and then this lower layer that I spoke of earlier, the store consciousness, which is similar to the concept of the unconscious in Western psychology. And it's called store consciousness because it stores the potentiality of our mental states, which are described as seeds in Buddhist psychology that are sleeping in the depths of our mind. There are many kinds of seeds in our store consciousness, some 52, and some are wholesome, like mindfulness, generosity, forgiveness, and some are unwholesome, like greed, ignorance, violence. All of us have all of these types of seeds. And another way of thinking about these two layers is of the living room, which is the mind consciousness, and the basement, which is the store. So when a seed is watered in the store consciousness, in the basement, it rises up into the mind, into the living room, and manifests. It becomes an activated mental state, no longer sleeping, but now capable of impacting our body and our emotions, our actions. It actually changes our physiology. So suddenly we have a guest in the living room. And depending on which guest it is, it can make our living room pleasant and cozy or very unpleasant and tense. So for example, if the seed of anger is watered, it wakes up from its sleeping state in store, and it becomes a mind state or the energy of anger. And we feel heat and constriction, and maybe blood flows to our extremities more quickly, preparing us to fight or flee or freeze. And in this state, if we're not aware, if we're not noticing that anger has arisen, we may think, say, and do things that express our irritation and anger that we may regret later, or not. But every minute that we spend consuming or expressing our anger makes that seed of anger in the basement grow slightly bigger. So the next time something happens to trigger our anger, it arises faster from the basement, it's more intense, and it stays longer in the living room. So if we keep allowing that seed of anger to be watered, either by ourselves or our environment, we get stuck in a toxic loop that makes it grow bigger and bigger every day. And we become trapped in a pattern of constantly getting angered, even by small things that didn't used to bother us. So this has a detrimental effect on our body and mind, because our nervous system wasn't meant to handle this kind of stress. But we also have mindfulness in our store consciousness. Down in the basement, it's always there. And we can call up this seed of mindfulness whenever we want. It's always available. One mindful breath in and out, one step made in full awareness is enough to bring up the seed of mindfulness. And it becomes present in our living room as the energy of mindfulness. It has a soothing, refreshing effect on our body and mind, bringing attentiveness, friendliness, and curiosity to our experience. So we often will suppress our painful emotions like shame or anger or jealousy, fear, by avoiding them, pretending they aren't there, or on the other extreme, we let them take us over, we vent them, we let them run the show and occupy the living room completely. So neither of these two extremes helps us to transform the emotions or the mind states that are at their root in store consciousness. Mindfulness is a middle way, a third option that actually leads us to transformation and peace. We can care for any of our strong emotions like anger, jealousy, sadness, confusion, or fear by calling them up into the living room as soon as we know that an unwholesome seed has arisen, by calling mindfulness up into the living room to recognize that it's this other difficult emotion is there. And so we say to ourselves, breathing in, I know I'm angry. Breathing out, I'm here for my anger. Breathing in, I know I'm afraid. Breathing out, I'm here for my fear. So we don't deny our anger or try to distract ourselves from it with technology or consuming something. We turn towards it, we face it. And one of the things that can help us be with it is to feel it in our body, to notice where we feel it and what its physical characteristics are, as we've just practiced in the meditation. So when we do this, immediately our painful emotion begins to settle down somewhat because we're not pushing it away. When it feels us no longer resisting it, it doesn't have to push to be seen in the same way. So there's no war in us of the emotion and our suppression or avoidance. We're being honest with ourselves and returning home to take care of this tense situation in the living room. So I had this experience when I had woken up early, 4 a.m., and I was laying in bed and started thinking of all these things that I needed to resolve in my life, and my body unconsciously began to tense up. Because of all of my thinking, I worried I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep. And after about 20 minutes of this, I suddenly recognized what was happening. And I said, this is worry. I was able to recognize what had come up into the living room. And as soon as I recognized worry was there, mindfulness was also there. Not just worry. And then right away, as I identified the emotion, I started to feel better. So I said, I see you worry. I said that to myself. And I was no longer unconsciously bracing against it and fighting it or fearing it unconsciously, which I had been doing. I brought awareness to my body and to my breathing, and I released the tension bit by bit. And I gave it space, and I was able to return to a state of deep rest. So once mindfulness recognizes anger or any difficult emotion, it begins to accept it and give it space. So we open to our experience of anger and allow it to be there. We generate compassion for ourselves, recognizing that anger is a part of us, so we don't want to reject it or judge it. However, accepting anger doesn't mean we give it freedom to cause destruction. Mindfulness is there with it in the living room, so it can't do harm. It has adult supervision, as I like to say. So once we've accepted it, then we embrace it. So we're like an older sibling or caretaker that might hold a crying baby. We acknowledge that this is part of us and it's suffering, and we move closer, opening our arms, taking good care of it. We hold it, we rock it, we soothe it. We can talk to it as we practice, saying, my dear anger, my dear sadness, I'm here for you, holding you with mindfulness. I will stay here and take good care of you, not leaving you alone or denying you. You are part of me, and I'm here to embrace you with my kindness and concern. As we move toward our painful emotion, it begins to calm down, and after a while, it starts to reveal itself to us. And we start to see below the surface and into the depths of this experience. We begin to have insights into where it comes from, and maybe it's not even our own anger coming from us, but it might be from our ancestors, from our community, from our nation. And when we understand it better, we're better able to help it release, to move through. So that's what emotions do. They arise and then they go. We have to let them go. When we suppress them, we actually keep them longer. So as we understand them better, they move on their way. And so in this fourth step, so we've recognized the emotion, we accept it, we embrace it. It's a kind of deepening of acceptance. And then the fourth step is we investigate, we look deeply. So as we investigate this experience of anger, or whatever it is, it leads us into some deeper insight of maybe habitual patterns and how we can transform our behavior, our attitudes. And when we practice caring for the energy of anger with mindfulness in this way, the seed of anger gets smaller at the root. And so the next time something upsets us, anger is slower to arise. It gets less intense and it passes more quickly. So in this way, any strong emotion begins to have an ever weaker hold on us, and we become more and more free. So as Dan Emmons says, what most needs attention is the part of us that we seek to avoid feeling. When we have tended to that, we are changed, and the world changes with us. So just in case it's supportive, I wanted to just share a diagram of these two layers of the mind, and how this process of being with it mindfully, how that works. I'm going to share my screen. Do you see a purple box?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There, it should be nice and big now. Okay, so that's the two layers of mind consciousness, this living room at the top, and store consciousness, which is holding all these seeds in the second layer. And then, let's see. Okay, do you see the next slide? Pink one? Okay, so then here is the emotion that has gotten touched off, if it's anger or sadness, worry. So it's no longer sleeping, and now it's come up into mind consciousness. This mind state or emotion is now in the living room. And then the last slide shows mindfulness. We call up mindfulness. This other seed now manifests in the living room, and it's embracing the first mind state. So one one energy field is holding, taking care of the first energy field, and bringing kindness, bringing compassion to the pain. And then that seed of that painful emotion begins to respond to that, and it shrinks. So it's not as, it doesn't have the same kind of impact on our mind as that seed gets smaller. Would you like to see a child's drawing of this? Okay, let's see here. All right, so this is, when I lived in Germany as a nun, we taught mindfulness retreats for educators. So this teacher came and she learned about the mind and store, and she shared it with her six-year-olds, first graders in Germany. So she had them keep a mindfulness journal, and she said, in this circle you draw the lower layer, the upper layer, put all the seeds, and you decide which wholesome seed you want to nourish for this week. So they had brainstormed already what were some of the wholesome seeds that they knew they had in them, like friendliness and being helpful and being joyful. So they could choose one seed, and then this child has drawn the little watering can, watering the seed. And then they had to draw a flower that sprouts up from the seed. And in the petals of the flower, they wrote what were the results of watering that wholesome seed. And so this child has decided to nourish the seed of helping, helfen, and also joy, glücklich. And so they drew the flower, and what they noticed, what happened when they watered that wholesome seed was joy, Freude, peace, freedom. So those are some of the things this child has drawn in their flower. So stop the share. So just like the unwholesome, painful seeds will get smaller when we do this practice, the more we recognize and embrace and see our wholesome seeds, the bigger they get, the more available they become to us. And the more they can bring us healing. So this is something we can practice in our daily life. When a strong emotion arises, we try to remember that first step to recognize that it's there, to say, I see you, to give it a name. You know, if it's boredom, hello boredom, I know you're here. If it's numbness, numbness, I see you're here. So we recognize it, and then we bring mindfulness up from store consciousness to accompany the emotion, to feel it in our body and notice the sensations that it has. And as soon as possible, once it arises, we have adult supervision, recognizing, being there with the emotion. If we can't identify it, that's okay. If we don't have a name for it, that's okay. We might just say suffering is here, or discomfort is here. There's feeling bad. I don't know what it is, but it's some kind of bad feeling. And this way, as if we recognize our emotion as soon as it arises, we have a choice about how we respond to it, rather than being taken over by it, falling into that path, or suppressing it, trying to get rid of it. So let me invite us to do another 5-minute journaling practice together about our difficult emotions. So I will put these in the chat and read them out to you. So what general category of strong emotion do you find yourself faced with most in this time of transition and challenge? Assuming you do feel you are in a time of transition and challenge. If you don't, that's fine. Maybe you there can be any kind of emotion that you might want to identify or work with. So here are some of the options that you could connect with as a general category. Frustration and anger as one, sadness and despair as another, confusion, ambivalence, anxiety, fear, or something else. So about 5 different things there to see if there's one that sort of you resonate with more in this time. And then what is your habitual response to this strong emotion? And then how was it for you in the meditation to approach this difficult emotion with kindness and friendliness? So we'll take 5 minutes for journaling about this. Okay, one more minute. Great. So we'll continue. Just curious, are you feeling good about this talk and then journaling? Talk and then journaling? Yeah? Okay. Good. Good, good. So I want to move on and share some practices that can really support us with strong emotions. In my final years as a nun in the Plum Village community, I went through a time of real crisis, this existential crisis about what I should be doing with my life. And I was considering whether to leave the monastery, which, as I mentioned before, was just this really huge question to be holding, because I'd spent my whole adult life as a monastic and had this clear identity and a role as an older sister, and contemplating a future outside the monastery. I didn't see any clear path ahead of me. There was no job, no relationship, no community, no place to live, like no security. And yet something was calling me, and I couldn't stay in robes just because it was comfortable and known and safe. Something was speaking to me that I couldn't ignore. And at that time, I was living at our center in Germany, where we were about to host 2 large retreats of about 1,000 people each. And I was usually very involved in these annual retreats, where Thai would come from Plum Village to lead them. But then at that time, I just felt I couldn't manage even being present during these retreats because of how confused I was feeling about my path. And so I asked the sisters if I could go to Plum Village, our monastery in France, during all the busyness of the retreats. They didn't think it was a good idea, so they said, please ask Thai what he says. So I went to Thai and I said, I just don't have any space inside. I don't think I can be here for this retreat. For these retreats, it's going to be too much. And he heard me out very quietly, and which he would always do. And then he said, yes, I hear all that you're saying, and you can stay. In other words, you're capable of staying. And I was pressed on. I was like, but it's just so tight inside. I have no space. I feel like I'm completely up against a wall. And he said, this is exactly the time when you take refuge in the basic practices of mindful sitting, mindful breathing, and being aware of each step. Anytime you walk, you're aware that you're taking this step. And when you breathe, you're aware that you're taking this breath. And as I listened to him speak, I began to relax, and I realized he was right. He was seeing a capacity in me that I couldn't see in myself. And I understood that I could, in fact, stay for the retreats. I felt, oh, I think I can do this. So he made it clear I didn't need to be on the front lines, that being, in the public eye, facilitating a group or making announcements, those sorts of things, but that I could just stay and be there with the community. And so I was willing to try. And then after that, things became much more workable. I still had all of my confusion, all of my doubts, all of my turmoil, but Thay had given me a great gift with that teaching. His reminding me of the basic practices of mindful walking and mindful breathing helped me to weather that storm. So when all of those thoughts would come up, I would go back to my steps, my breath. Keep it simple. And so my experience of both of those retreats turned out to be very affirming and empowering. I didn't have, major responsibilities, but I was really nourished by the energy of the community, and I participated in all the activities. And I was, really transformed by this large body of people practicing mindfulness. And what was so, powerful was to realize that I had the capacity to persevere and find my center in the midst of crisis and confusion. And I wouldn't have learned that about myself if I had run away, if I had gone to Plum Village. So we can shift our experience of overwhelm by this basic practice of being with what is here and now. So much of the overwhelm and stress comes from all that we're afraid might happen in the future. But in this moment right here, there is the ability to recognize fear, to be with fear, to not be swallowed by it. So there's non-fear that's there, and we can touch that. If we are running, not in touch with what's right here, then fear is running the show. But if we can stop, we have the chance to touch into something that's deeper than that, that's more than our overwhelm. So we'll do this practice together of one of the key practices that Thay invited me to do in that stormy time in Germany. It's called belly breathing. So if you imagine a tree, a large tree, like an oak tree in a storm, the top of the tree, all the branches might be waving, might be thrashing about, but the trunk of the tree isn't moving. It's firm, it's solid. And it's the same with us. In times of emotional turmoil, it's dangerous to stay at the level of our mind, these upper branches that are getting blown about. That's the branches up here. So if we feed the thoughts of anxiety, anger, despair, that can get us into real trouble. It can be life-threatening. Instead, we can bring our attention down to the belly, to the trunk of our tree, which is stable and steady. There we'll be safe. So we bring all of our awareness to our belly, and we don't let our attention get caught up in the thrashing of the upper branches of our thinking mind. At least not until they calm down and the storm has passed. So if you want to try this out for a little bit with me, I would invite you to, best would be to lie down, because that's how you really can feel your belly, but you can do it seated as well. If you have a way to lie down comfortably on your back or on the bed or on a couch where you can feel your belly. And it could also be supportive, depends on what works for you, but having something that's slightly has some weight to it to put on your belly could also be helpful, like a little bag of rice, or a cushion that weighs a pound or something, or even a book, not too heavy. But you can do this without any weight too. And you might try it with the weight and see, oh, I don't really like it. That's fine. You just do it without the weight. And if you're sitting, you don't need anything on your belly. So this is also a lovely thing to do with children, where you put a stuffed animal on their belly and you let them watch the animal go up and down on the waves of their breath. Or an origami boat. I've done that too with kids. They really like that. Seeing the boat go up and down on the waves of their breath. So once you're in position, begin to feel your breath coming in and flowing out. Notice how your belly rises with the in-breath and falls with the out-breath. Bring all of your attention to the rising and falling of your belly. Rising, falling. Or extending, retracting. Just that. Rising, falling. And if your mind gets pulled into the turmoil of thinking or strong emotions, bring it back gently, kindly, to rest on the sensation of your belly, moving up and down, or out and in. The object resting on your belly can give you a stronger sensation of pressure, so you can stay focused on the contact between the object and your belly and follow these wave-like movements of the belly. As you breathe in, the wave comes in, and as you breathe out, the wave rolls out. In, out. Stay here for as long as you need until the storm has passed. Beautiful. And as you're ready, you can gently bring this to a close and open your eyes and find your place again. And we'll take another 5 minutes to journal. And then we'll take a break. So the questions are, when you have encountered stormy times in your life, what has helped you move through them? How did you experience the belly breathing that we did together? In a time of overwhelm or difficulty, which practices do you think you could access most readily to help you weather the storm? So take some minutes now to reflect. And we'll bring our journaling to a close. We'll go into our break now. It'll be an 8-minute break. So we'll come back at 10 past the hour, and we'll go into small groups just for 10 minutes once we come back to share more about what's coming up for us. So see you in 8 minutes. Enjoy your break if you can get outside, get some fresh air. Into groups of 3 or 4. I put the prompt in the chat. You'll have 2 minutes each to share what came up for you in your journaling practice, if you want, or what's alive for you after hearing the talk. So these 2 reflections on caring for strong emotions, these steps for being with strong emotions, and then this teaching that Ty gave me about coming back to the core practices of breathing, of walking, and our practice of belly breathing. So anything that's coming up for you that you want to share, or it may be related to what you journaled about. So just 2 minutes each. If you have time at the end, you can have open discussion. You could go alphabetically by first name this time. So for those who wish, you'll be in small groups for the next 10 minutes, and we will then, the last part of our time today will be question and answer. I'm giving a little extra time because there were a number of questions we didn't get to earlier. So once we come back in 10 minutes, we'll have about 20-25 minutes for questions, 30 minutes or so. So hope we can get to all of them. And so have a good time in your groups, or feel free to be here in the main room as well. And before we, I was going to teach you a song. Shall I teach you a song briefly? Okay. A very simple song. The words are, I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. Okay? I'll sing it and then we'll sing it together, but you can stay on mute. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. We try together. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. 2 times. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. Lie, die, da, die, la, da, die, die, da, die, la, da, die, die, da, die, die, da, die. Lie, die, da, die, la, da, die, die, da, die, la, da, die, die, da, die, die, da, die. Thank you. So let me pass it to Maria Cristina so she can give us the rundown for tomorrow, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Kyra Jewel. Thank you so much. Everyone, I just wanted to remind you, and I've put it in the chat, that tomorrow's schedule starts at 12:30 p.m. That's Pacific Coast time, and ends at 3 p.m. Pacific Coast time. You're going to reuse the same link that you used today. And that's it for me. You have the participants guide. And again, the recording for anything that you've missed or will miss will come to you in 10 days or sooner. Kara Jewel, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I think that's it, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. It'll be half the time of today, and we'll keep going. So keep your practice alive in the meantime, approaching your daily life at home with mindfulness. See you tomorrow.